Hello and welcome back. So week one is now in the books, an excellent first week for the NHL and for fantasy hockey. Today we're going to take a look at some of the top performers from week one, a look ahead at the week two schedule and potential waiver plays for some of the teams, and we're going to be looking at player ads by category. So a lot to cover in this video, but let's jump right into the week two schedule and take a look here. Now, the best schedule next week may be Florida, who plays Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Sunday. So the perfect 4-game off-night schedule. And there are some winnable games there, some difficult ones as well. Boston, Philly, Tampa Bay, and the New York Islanders. So that's Florida's schedule this week. But you can see here the teams in green all play 4 times. All of these teams play 3 times. St. Louis and Chicago are the only 2 teams that play twice. So you're going to want to avoid those type of players. You're not going to target Chicago guys most of the time for this season. But St. Louis is very ripe to pick for some fantasy targets, especially in their top 9. But they only play twice this week, so maybe stay away from them a little bit. In terms of the other nice schedule, Seattle also plays Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Sunday. So all the off nights for most of your guys in your lineups. But they have a bit more of a difficult schedule for the first 3 games at least. But there are definitely some waiver plays from the Kraken that will help you this week, and we'll go over that in just a minute. Now, the best schedules with 3 games are the Rangers and the Red Wings. So the Rangers are rolling right now. They got off to a really good start, won the first 2 games against 2 really difficult teams. Then they got caught on the second night of a back-to-back, and Hellebuck played really well Friday night, so they got their first loss. But this week they face Anaheim on Monday, who's given up 12 goals in 2 games to Seattle and the Islanders, so not great there. Maybe play the over on Monday night or the Rangers plus a goal and a half, as the Rangers scored 10 goals in their first 2 games against Tampa Bay and Minnesota, and that was Vasilevsky and Fleury. So 2 excellent goaltenders. They lit up when they actually had their legs underneath them. Detroit also has a pretty favorable schedule. Home against LA on Monday night, then at Chicago on Friday night, and back home for a game against the Ducks on Sunday. They're all kind of winnable games for Detroit, relatively speaking. And there has been some fantasy value on their team as well. For example, my waiver pickup that I picked up in the draft, right after the draft, I had the 2 IR spots, threw my guys to the IR. I ended up picking up Dylan Larkin, and he's been paying off. 2 games played, 1 goal, 3 assists, 4 points, +5, and 6 shots for Dylan Larkin. So he's been a nice center ad that I picked up at the end of the draft. You probably could have gotten him deep in your draft as well. He might be on your waiver wire. He's getting PP1 time as well. So yeah, a lot to like there. And then just a quick reminder, if you want access to this exact schedule, except the interactive version of it, where you can filter through and pick your exact week that you're looking for. You can find the playoff weeks, the championship weeks, and look who has a heavier schedule and a lighter schedule. You can find that with the Patreon link in the description below for $3 a month. You get access to this and all of my other charts and visualizations that I've used in my videos. You can help, it'll help you make better decisions throughout the season if you're determining between 2 players. Seeing some of those 5-year averages and what the players have done in previous seasons will help you make a differentiating factor between 2 players sometimes on the waiver wire. And then for $5, you get all of that plus access to our community Discord channel, which is helping every single one of us navigate injuries, line assignments, as well as trends in the league. It's a really valuable resource to have when information is key and time is of the essence. So you can also use that to ask me questions about your fantasy team, potential trade proposals, and waiver pickups, and much more. So all that's in the description below, the Patreon links for $3 and $5. It's not crazy. And we have a ton of people in that Discord group that are helping cover some of the teams that I don't get to watch often. So that's a very valuable resource for me personally. Now, as we go to the week 1 trends, one thing I've noticed through week 1 is that the Seattle Kraken power play is keeping them in games despite poor goaltending and defense. Their power play is currently ranked 5th in the league at 38.5%. They're 5 for 13, and most of their power play unit is available on the waiver wire. That's why I'm highlighting this. So their main unit is currently Matty Beniers. He's 49% owned. He's the highest one so far. Burakovsky, Bjorkstrand, McCann, and Schultz. Sometimes they also sprinkle in Vince Dunn, Jaden Schwartz, Jordan Eberle. Eberle's only 3% owned, so he could be a deep league play. But if you look at some of these ownerships, Jaden Schwartz, 4% owned, 3 games played, 2 goals, 1 assist, 2 power play points, 10 shots, 7 hits, and a block. So really good production there out of Jaden Schwartz, and he's available in almost every league. Justin Schultz is the power play quarterback defenseman. So if you need a D3 or a D4 power play quarterback defenseman and you don't have one yet, Justin Schultz, 6% owned, 3 games played, 1 goal, 2 assists, 2 power play points, 6 shots, 2 hits, 4 blocks. So he's covering a little bit of everything, and he's getting you the power play production. You could do a lot worse than Justin Schultz in that category because he's going to get you PP1 exposure, and that seems to be the only way that they're scoring right now. You're looking at Andrei Burakovsky, 35% owned. That's a little bit higher, but still not crazy. 3 games played, 1 goal, 3 assists, 3 power play points, 9 shots, and a hit. So he's been relatively productive, and he's been doing a lot on the power play. And then if you look at Oliver Bjorkstrand, he's in that bumper spot on the power play, 26% owned, 3 games played, 1 goal, 1 assist, 1 power play point, 15 shots on goal, and 2 hits. So that's what you're going to get out of Bjorkstrand, shot volume and power play exposure. And it's a little bit hard to see, but Jared McCann down here, 16% owned, 3 games, 1 goal, 1 power play point, 6 shots, and 3 hits. But he has looked really decent on that top power play unit with these guys. And as I mentioned, the reason why I'm talking about this is because most of these guys are available in your waiver pickup lists. You can find almost every one of these guys. The highest percentage ownership is Beniers at 49. So a lot of these guys are available in your league, and they will get you PP1 exposure on a unit that is currently 5th in the league. But the other thing about the Seattle Kraken that I've noticed, don't know why I'm doubling up on this, but they have a lot of hits targets as well. So they're this is because they turn the puck over so much and they don't play with the puck. But there's a ton of guys with hits and blocks coverage, and that can be useful in category leagues and in points leagues with heavy hits, blocks, and shots weighting. And as I mentioned earlier, they play every off night this week. So Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday. Actually, I think it's Sunday. It might have been a typo. But nonetheless, they play mostly on the off nights. And you're going to be able to filter them into your lineup because most of your guys are not going to be playing. So if you need hits targets, Alexiak, 15 hits. That's second highest number in the league, 4 blocks on top of that. Carson Soucy, 13 hits, 2 blocks. Brandon Tanev, if you need a forward for hits coverage, 10 hits, 3 blocks, 6 shots, and a goal. He looked very good thus far. I believe he's in the top 9. He could be in the bottom 2 lines. I haven't been paying too much attention to that, but it doesn't matter because he still hits, and he's getting some offensive production on top of that. Yanni Gourde is a center. He's got 9 hits, 7 shots, 2 blocks, so he's getting you some of that peripheral coverage as well. But the best guy to target might be Adam Larson because he gets you a little bit of everything, and he does it pretty well. So 10 hits, 9 shots, 7 blocks, and again, he's playing on most of those off nights this week, so he could be a guy to target if you just need that one defenseman for peripheral coverage. And then the other thing that I noticed in week 1, obviously Colorado's power play is elite. That's no surprise. They're humming early on. They're second in the league at 50%, 5 for 10. And if you look at the power play points leaders for the Avs, it's Rantanen. He's number 1 with 5 power play assists. Then it's Lehkonen with 4 power play points, and then Nichushkin with 3 power play goals. So these guys are usually heavily owned up, but they're not completely owned up. So if they are there in your league, Lehkonen 72%, Nichushkin 79% owned. If they're there, you should grab them because they are the bumper position for Nichushkin on this power play, and Lehkonen is the down low guy. He's cleaning up the garbage, and they're racking up the power play points when they're out there. The Avs this week, they have Minnesota on Monday, Winnipeg on Wednesday, Seattle on Friday, and Vegas on Saturday. So the only difficult game schedule-wise may be the back-to-back home Friday night against Seattle and then on the road in Vegas. So if you're paying attention, you will likely see Francouz and Georgiev for each of those games, and it'll be interesting to see which one they start for the Vegas game when they're tired after traveling on the second night of a back-to-back. You're probably going to want your better goaltender for that game. So that's something I'll be looking out for in terms of goaltending. But if you need power play exposure, these 2 guys are some of the hottest guys in the league, and we will see that momentarily going forward as we cover categories. Now, some other week 1 trends. This is a little off the board, but this is for all you fantasy owners that are desperate out there. The Coyotes' power play is actually 3 for 8. They're 6th in the league at 37.5% thus far. I know it's a very small sample size, but in leagues without plus minus, if you're looking for that power play production, Everyone except maybe Clayton Keller is available. Keller's in the 70% range in terms of ownership, but everybody else is relatively low. So as you can see here, 73% for Keller, 38% for Gostisbehere, and everybody else is virtually unowned. So, I'm going to admit I have no idea who J.J. Moser is, but look at those stats: 2 power play points, 2 assists, 3 hits, 3 blocks. Not bad at all. 25 minutes of ice time. So that's really high for a guy that I've actually never heard of. And I follow the league relatively closely. It's just it's very difficult to pay attention to Arizona with all the tanking that's going on right now. But if you need another power play quarterback defenseman, Gostisbehere is that guy right now. So 1 goal, 2 assists, 2 power play points, 8 shots, 2 hits, 3 blocks, all very decent. And again, if you don't have plus minus in your league, that's a target. He's a high shot volume guy and usually a goal scorer. I believe he had 14 goals on the season last year. So he's getting that PP1 time. He's 38% owned, so he may not be available in your league, but if he is, you could do that. Now, Chychrun is the only other guy that should be, in this conversation, but isn't right now. He's currently on IR after rehabbing from offseason wrist surgery. He's 46% owned, so he's more owned than Gostisbehere and almost anybody else on this team except for Keller. And there are always rumors about him getting traded. I would assume he's going to get traded at some point this season, but nothing is imminent right now. But yeah, it could be a good time to scoop him up off the waiver wire because he's a guy who's usually top 5 in shots. He's usually, when he's healthy, top 5 in defenseman goals. And he's a guy that's going to be quarterbacking this power play that nobody wants access to. So if he's at 46% owned, and he's available in your league, he could be a decent stash as he's on the IR right now. And that could be a nice, interesting play for the future, especially for your fantasy playoffs if you can hold on to him for that long. Now, as we're going to shift here to the week 1 waiver ads, what you're looking at right now is the top 25 fantasy players for Yahoo categories leagues thus far. If you're in a points league and your point weighting is different, it will show different names in your top 25. But I do encourage you to go and check that out because if you're in that league format with points, it will look different than this. And you can do just what I'm doing right now and looking up the ownership percentages and some of the stats for your particular league format. So that will definitely help you gain an advantage. And here we're seeing some of the guys that we talked about earlier. You see Jaden Schwartz, you see Lehkonen, Burakovsky, Nichushkin. We've kind of covered some of those guys already. But there's a couple of other interesting names to look at. Ivan Provorov, if you look at him, he's only 54% owned, 9 hits, 9 shots, and 11 blocks. So he's getting you all the dirty, greasy categories, and he got 3 assists on top of that as well. 22 minutes of ice time, so he's getting an opportunity for John Tortorella to play defense, and he's doing just that. He's physically engaged in every game. He could be a nice waiver pickup. We talked about this in week 1 because 2 games had already taken place, but Nino Niederreiter, 4 goals in 4 games, 10 shots, and 10 hits. So that's an interesting little wrinkle there. He's throwing the body as well. He will show up on our hits category coverage in just a second, but he's a guy that's getting you goal production. He's on that second line in Nashville. He's getting a little bit of power play time and only 36% ownership. That's really decent as well. And then, the guy at the bottom here, Luke Kunin, this I think is a little bit more of a schedule play. He had 4 games last week, in that series, going to Europe. He was on the other side of it with San Jose. He has a goal, an assist, a power play point, 11 shots, 7 hits, and 3 blocks. So all very decent. And he is the 25th ranked player in categories leagues. But yeah, at the same time, I would think Niederreiter is more able to back that up, that production that he's started off with, than Kunin, just because he's done it a little bit more frequently. But he is a guy that goes, hot and cold. So, I would favor Niederreiter over Kunin, but both of these guys had really good weeks, and they had 4 games that week. So, another reason to monitor who's playing the heavy volume next week, as we just mentioned in the schedule part of this video. So, just something to keep in mind. And let's move to goals. So, to start us off, you're looking at goal production. This isn't the best list because the season's still early, and you get some weirdness in there. You get Scott Mayfield with 2 goals last night, and I would not expect that to continue. You also get a Sam Lafferty in here. He got a couple goals, and I wouldn't necessarily expect that to continue, though, Chicago, anything can happen. But, a couple of the same names that we saw on here, Nino Niederreiter, leading the way with 4 goals. So that's pretty interesting. But we already, just covered him. Now, we mentioned it before. He only has 3 games this week, but favorable matchups: LA, Columbus, and Philadelphia for Nito Niederreiter. So that could be a reason to hold on to him if you picked him up, or to go out and grab him, although you're not going to get a 4-game week out of him. Now, the next guy on this list, Travis Konechny. Don't look too much into it, but the Flyers are 2-0, and they're competing every night. And Travis Konechny is somewhat back to his form with 3 goals, 1 assist, 1 power play point, 6 shots, 3 hits, and 2 blocks. So a little bit of everything so far. They play 4 times this week, but the only problem is, actually there's 2 problems. One, they play 2 back-to-backs. The first one is Tampa Bay and Florida, and then the second is Nashville and San Jose, Saturday and Sunday. So they play Tuesday, Wednesday, Saturday, Sunday. The Tuesday, Wednesday is rough. It's Tampa Bay and Florida. Not a lot of opportunity there. But the other end of the back end of that back-to-back on Saturday, Sunday, San Jose, that might be an interesting play. So if you need somebody for Sunday and Travis Konechny is on your waiver wire, you could potentially pick him up against an 0-4 San Jose Sharks team at this point. They might improve a little bit, but they're still showing themselves as a very weak defensive team. And Konechny could end up, winning your league for you if you're desperate need of goals on Sunday afternoon. Speaking of goals and unexpected goals production, Mason Marchment had a really nice start to the season. Definitely more of a hitter, averaging 2.1 hits per game last year, but an impressive start nonetheless. A beautiful breakaway goal to start it off for the Dallas Stars, and then a power play goal off a nice feed from Niels Lundqvist. 8 shots, 4 hits to complement that production. And if you're watching Dallas, obviously almost all of their production still comes from that top line. But, if Marchment can keep this up, his ownership is climbing, and he is usually more of a hits guy. So if he's going to chip in a couple goals here and there, he might become a Tanner Jeannot type or a Tom Wilson type for this season. Down in Dallas, they don't really have that kind of a player that's going to, it should be Jamie Benn throwing the body around, but he doesn't like to do it as much as Marchment. So that could be an interesting file to look forward to in the future. And then a couple other names down here with 1% ownership: Connor Sherry. 2 goals, 6 shots, 4 hits, 1 block. He's a guy who was a top or middle 6 player in Pittsburgh with, playing on the line with Crosby. Now he's being used in a 4th line role. He's not getting a lot of ice time. He's between 10 and 14 minutes per game, so maybe not the best stream option. But if he's going to score like this, maybe he moves his way into that lineup, into the top, end of the lineup, middle 6 maybe. Probably not going to make the top line, but they're in search of some offense there in Washington with guys like Backstrom out, Tom Wilson's out, so there's some opportunity to be had there. If he moves up in the lineup, that's something to keep an eye on. And then speaking of players that used to be decent goal scorers that are not there anymore, or maybe they will be, but Gustav Nyquist, 2 goals so far, 7 shots, 2 hits, and a block. People forget about him because last year he was injured for most of the season, missed a lot of time. But now with Laine injured, he's a guy that could climb up that lineup. And he started the season with the 14, 15 minutes of ice time in that range. But now with Laine gone, he was up to 18:56 last game. He had a goal in that game as well. So if you're like me and you have Laine now on your IR, he could be a nice fill-in piece. But the only problem is he's not seeing power play time yet. So there is that factor, but Columbus does play 4 times this week, including a Sunday matchup with the Rangers. That's going to be difficult, but if you need that Sunday goal production, he's a guy that you could maybe look at. The rest of their games are Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, so maybe not the best week to pick him up, but if you do need that Sunday goal scoring, that might be the guy to go to. Him, maybe Travis Konechny, maybe a couple of other guys as we go through with some of the different categories. But this last name down here, Jonathan Toews, the only reason he's on here is if you're in a points league with heavy face-off weighting, and I'm in one of those, and for the purposes of that kind of a league where you get 1 point per face-off win, he's excellent value even on a light week. So in that league where I'm, it's 1 point per shot, 1 per block, 1 per face-off win, and 1 per hit. It's crazy. But in that league specifically, he's ranked 26th overall with 44.5 points, mainly due to his 25 face-off wins and 2 goals. So Always check your league format. If you're not sure how the points are weighted and other players in your league seem to be doing way better than you, you may be missing something crucial because you're not paying attention to the league format. So if you're in a face-off league, that's why I mentioned Jonathan Taves, but they only played 2 times this week, so not ownable in any other league format. Now, assist pickups, there's a few trends here. The Flyers do play 2 back-to-backs. They do play 3 good opponents this week, but 2 of those games are on off nights when your roster looks pretty empty, and there's a few guys that are hardly owned on this list for assists. We mentioned Konechny for goals, but how about Kevin Hayes for assists and power play points? He's only 3% owned. He's got 3 assists, 2 on the power play, 5 shots, 1 hit, and he's getting PP1 exposure, so that could be an interesting file to look at. JVR down here, he's a difficult fantasy player to own. He's very cold most of the time. Every now and then he gets hot and he can do something for you. He has 3 assists in 2 games, 1 of those on the power play, 3 shots, not much else to write home about, but if you are desperate, he will likely be that down low guy on the power play, and maybe John Tortorella can get the most out of him. We'll have to wait and see on that one. Now, speaking of guys that nobody wants, we will mention him again. I will mention him again at another point in this video, but Tyler Johnson, 0% owned. He's got 3 assists, 1 on the power play, 5 shots, 9 hits. That's a little high. I mean, he's a smaller player, and he's getting 9 hits, so that's something to keep an eye on. He will factor into the hits part of this video as well. But if your league doesn't have plus minus, you could go to that file. If your league has plus minus, obviously stay away, but he is dual position eligible, so that might help you a little bit as well. Again, Chicago only plays 2 times this week, so maybe that's something to keep an eye out for next week, or just, potentially look at it for the weekend because they play Friday, Sunday. So you could potentially target him or, a couple of different Chicago guys for that Friday, Sunday matchup, and we'll mention that when we get to hits. And then another guy that I wanted to look at really quick, if you don't own Matty Beniers, that's likely my fault. I forgot to mention him in my rookie deep plays video, but he would have been really high on that list. He's one of only 5 players in NHL history to record a point in 11 of his first 12 games. So very impressive start to his career. He gets you PP1 exposure in Seattle, like we mentioned before. They have a great schedule this week, all the off nights to start with. And he gets you assists and some shot coverage as well. 7 shots on goal, a couple hits, a couple blocks. He's doing a lot, pretty much as their number 1 center in Seattle. So that's definitely a guy you want to target. And if you haven't been paying attention to the Krejci, Pastrnak, Zaka line, they look relatively good together. Now, sometimes they throw Taylor Hall on that line instead of Zaka, but either way, David Krejci is going to rack up some points playing with Pastrnak. So you can see here, 1 goal, 3 assists, a power play point, 2 shots, and a couple hits and blocks thrown in there as well. He's only 24% owned. He's just a strict center, so most guys are going to have centers in their lineup, but if he's outperforming your center, then you might want to take a look at him because of that Pastrnak exposure. And you might want to jump on him now when he's only 24% owned before he takes off and guys get, catch on to the fact that he's playing in the garden seat with Pastrnak. And then a couple other, another assist heavy guy, Mikael Granlund, 3 assists so far, 8 shots, 7 hits is not bad either. And we mentioned him in our deep plays video. He's mainly there for power play 1 exposure and assist coverage, and that's what you're going to get out of him. But yeah, he's another guy that's on this list and relatively low ownership, 24%. If you need that dual position eligible center, Tyler Seguin is back. He's healthy and he's center right wing eligible. So 3 assists, 2 power play points, 4 shots, 4 hits, and he may be one of the only guys not on that top line to factor into some power play time and get some offensive situations. So he's currently 65% owned. That's likely because of this dual position eligibility and his shot volume, historically speaking. But yeah, if you're in a deep league, you want that shot volume and you want that dual position center right wing. That's very important in my faceoffs league because you want every winger position filled up with a center who's also a winger. So Tyler Seguin is higher owned in those type of leagues, which may impact this number. But yeah, he's going to get you assist coverage, some power play points, and a little bit of peripheral coverage as well. Now, as we go to power play, a lot of the same things we mentioned before. We're not going to go too deep into it. Seattle and Colorado, those are the things that you want to look out for. Almost everybody else is owned up, but you're going to get Lehkonen, Burakovsky in Seattle. There's that Colorado tie. former Avalanche, a current Avalanche. You got Kevin Hayes. He's on this list again as well with the 2 power play points. There's not a ton in terms of power play production that's potentially available on your wire, but that's why we're highlighting these guys. Justin Schultz, 7% owned. He's getting a ton of peripheral coverage on top of that power play number, so that's a reason to target him. There's J.J. Moser, the guy I didn't know about. I will look him up going forward and see if there's anything more to write home about, or if he's just had a nice first week in the season. But nonetheless, 2 power play points. And then Nicholas Waugh, not sure why he's on here, but he chipped in 2 power play points as well, and he's getting some shots and hits and blocks coverage as well, and another dual center right wing eligible guy. But other than that, not much to write home about. Tony DeAngelo, as I mentioned before, they've got 4 games this week, 2 back-to-backs, but if he's not completely owned at 86%, he might be there for you. He's their power play quarterback, and he's been putting up some numbers. So he's got 3 points in 2 games, 2 power play points, and 6 blocks, which is pretty nice if you're a Tony D owner. Now, in terms of shots, if you're looking to add shot volume to your team, there are plenty of options to get it done. As I mentioned before, Bjorkstrand shoots a ton. He's averaging 5 shots per game thus far, and he's on PP1. We just covered that, so I'm not going to go too much into it. But 15 shots, that's very high. Riley Smith, he was a nice waiver pickup this week. I was debating him and Kessel in last week's video. I went with Kessel for my main league. I did pick up Riley Smith in a different league, but Kessel was in the doghouse a bit for Bruce Cassidy despite getting that line 1 assignment with Eichel. But Smith ended up on the left side of that line 1 with Eichel, and he's also on power play 1. He scored a power play goal last night against Seattle. So definitely a guy to look at. Though the Knights have a few difficult matchups this week, they do get the Avs on the second night of a back-to-back on Saturday. So maybe he can keep this going as well. And then 2 other guys I wanted to mention, Lafreniere and Trocheck. So, this shot volume for Lafreniere is very good. And then Trocheck as well. That's not bad either. I targeted Trocheck for hits, but, Lafreniere got 6 hits. Trocheck only got 1. So that's, a little bit surprising just to start the season. But right now, with Kravtsov injured, these are the 2 guys playing with Artemi Panarin. So Lafreniere and Trocheck with Panarin on that second line, and they're getting a ton of shots because Panarin's just setting them up left and right. So Lafreniere, 51% owned, Trocheck, 65% owned. It may be worth, if they're available in your league, you might want to go and think about picking them up. Lafreniere is dual position eligible. But yeah, these are, and then Trocheck is getting you PP1 exposure on top of all of that. Now, he doesn't have a power play goal or point yet, but he has 3 points on the season, a goal and 2 assists in 3 games. That 12 shots is nice. He's been, doing just fine for my team, and I would definitely like that power play exposure. They have a nice schedule this week with a couple of easier matchups, so that could be something to look out for as well. Now, if you're looking for really, really deep value, Kevin LeBanc, only 1% owned, no points yet, and that's probably why he's so low. But if you just want shots and power play exposure, or if you're in a deep league and you only need those 2 factors, then he's a guy you could look at. 12 shots on the season, a couple hits and blocks to throw in there as well. Trevor Moore, I've mentioned him before in terms of that line in the deep value plays video for veteran forwards. 9% owned, 11 shots. That's really nice. He's playing with, again, Philip Deneau, and Victor Arvidsson, who I picked up for the shot volume this week, but he only played 1 game. So I probably should have gone with Trevor Moore for that shot volume, but it's okay. I did end up winning that category anyway. And then Dawson Mercer. So if you're extremely desperate, or if you're the Portland Rivercats in my league and you drafted him in the 12th round for some reason, Dawson Mercer, 11 shots through 2 games. So that's pretty interesting, but that's really the only thing he's been, good for thus far. He does have an assist, not bad. It was on the power play, so I'll give him credit there. Just kind of crazy that he went in the 12th round in my league. And then Luke Cunnin, we mentioned him earlier. That's likely a schedule factor. He's got, 11 shots, but it's 4 games played, so a little bit more than everybody else. So nothing to think too much into there, but he's only 10% owned, so if you need him, there he is. Now, in terms of hits, these guys are mostly ownable. So if you need one, you can grab them pretty easily off the wire. But look at the 2 superstar forwards in the league this year that are hitting. Like Ovechkin, 13 shots, 15 hits. You kind of expect that. But what about Austin Matthews? 17 shots, 14 hits. I mean, the highest hit total this year was thus far is Faravari in 3 games, and then Jeannot, 16 in 4 games. And then in 3 games, you get Ovechkin with 15 and Matthews with 14. So that's kind of insane. And then if you were thinking back to just the first game of the season, McDavid with the 3 goals, 1 assist, all the power play numbers and everything else, he had 5 hits in that game. So something has gotten into the best players in this league that's pissing them off and making them want to hit everything that moves. So if you have one of these guys, I mean, congratulations, you played it right. But yeah, these guys are hitting a lot, and everybody else on this list, 0, 2%, 2, 1, 1. You can find a lot of these guys off the waiver wire. Now, in terms of schedule plays, again, any of those Seattle guys or Florida Panthers, though Gudas is likely owned up at 60%, maybe look at Ryan Lomberg, 0% owned, 2 hits in 2 games, but that is his style of game, and he does like to hit, historically speaking. They play 4 times, all on off nights this week, so he'll see 4 starts for your team. And then if you're really desperate and you're later in the week, Chicago does play Friday, Sunday against Detroit and Seattle. And right now, they are playing Jared Tenorti in the top 4, and he's 0% owned, 13 hits, 5 blocks in 3 games so far. And believe it or not, Tyler Johnson, 9 hits in 3 games, 3 assists, 5 shots, 2 blocks, and 0% owned. So if you find yourself on Friday afternoon in need of some hitters for the weekend, there's a couple of options that are definitely available in every single league that I'm talking to right now. But yeah, that'll do it for hits. And then in terms of blocks, a lot of these guys are going to get both. Now, Ferraro, for whatever reason, didn't get a lot of hits. He did get some blocks. But again, a lot of these guys are available on your waiver wire. Some of the elite guys, Darnell Nurse, Sergachev, Romanov, some of these guys are not available in your leagues. But, highlighted here, the guys who I highlighted are the guys who play 4 games this week. So Provorov has 4 games, but 2 of those are back-to-backs. So Tuesday, Wednesday, Tampa Bay, Florida, and then Saturday, Sunday, Nashville, San Jose. So he's a guy, he's been getting a ton of blocks, a ton of hits, and some shots as well. 3 assists to go with that in 2 games. So that was a nice pickup for my week 2 opponent, Lake Mohawk Moose. Mario Ferraro, he plays 4 times this week in the New York metro area, so not a lot of travel. There is a back-to-back Saturday, Sunday against the Devils and the Flyers, so that could be a great file this week for hits. Matt Roy does have a back-to-back Monday, Tuesday, Detroit, Nashville, but then he has Thursday and Saturday against Washington and Pittsburgh. So this may not work for you if you have 4 defensemen that play Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, but if you don't, then you could try Matt Roy. He's getting you 5 shots, 7 hits, 8 blocks through week 1, so that's not that bad at all. And then Dmitry Kulikov for Anaheim plays 4 times this week, including a back-to-back Monday, Tuesday, Rangers and Devils, and then Boston Thursday and Detroit Sunday. So at least 2 off nights you'll get him, and he's giving you 7 blocks, a couple of hits to go with that. Not many shots at all, not much of anything else. So he wouldn't be my number 1 target. But my number 1 target is right here, Adam Larson. He's the best guy for both hits and blocks combined. So you're seeing 9 shots, 10 hits, 7 blocks. He does have a goal on top of that. He's 9% owned. And as I mentioned before, Seattle plays on those off nights, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday. So those could be really valuable days to pick up Adam Larson. Just grab him at the beginning of the week, run him for those off nights for the peripheral coverage. That could be a nice option for you as well if you're in a categories league or if you're in a points league with weighted hits, shots, and blocks. So for week 2 goalie streams, this is mainly based on the schedule and which teams play back-to-back games that will likely feature a backup goalie getting a shot, as they're the ones that are likely available on your waiver wire. So just looking at the schedule, the best stream option, especially early in the week, is Cal Peterson. LA plays back-to-back on the road in Detroit and Nashville, so Jonathan Quick will get 1 game, Cal Peterson will get the other. Monitor that situation before game time Monday night, and you'll be able to grab the other guy, though LA did give up 6 goals the other night, and they're averaging 4.67 goals against through 3 games, which is tied for 5th worst in the league. They were 2nd best in shot suppression last year, and that would be the reason to target Peterson, but the Kings gave up 51 shots on opening night against Vegas. Then they only gave up 22 against Seattle, but Quick wasn't good in that one, so they dropped that one. Hence why Peterson started against Minnesota last night and gave up 6, but he did get the win. So a mixed bag in terms of LA, but that tandem was somebody I was targeting in my draft just because of that shot suppression number from the previous season, and their defense is healthy again this season again. So Semyon Varlamov, difficult matchup in either of those games on Saturday and Sunday, but historically, the Islanders have played pretty good defense over the years. They're 1-1 this year. They only gave up 2 goals per game, albeit with Sorokin in net, but Varlamov will get one of those games, and maybe you need that goalie start on a Sunday. If Varlamov gets the second half of the back-to-back and you need a start, you could do worse than that. Tarasov will likely get the start for Columbus Sunday against the Rangers unless they want to start Merzlikins then and Tarasov the first game. Monitor that situation, but they do play the Rangers, so it's not necessarily a great matchup for whoever's in net. And Varlamov may have a little slight favorable matchup against Florida comparatively speaking, but it's, apples to apples because both teams are very good offensively. The Flyers have 2 back-to-backs this week, as I mentioned before, and that means they're going to have to use a backup goaltender. Felix Sandstrom just got called up back to the big team, so he will likely see a minimum of 1 start this week, probably get 2 starts this week. He's 0% owned, so not even Sandstrom's family owns him in fantasy. So if you need someone in a deep league, he put up a 9-10 in 5 starts last year for the Flyers, and he could be a guy to get you 2 starts this week if you're really desperate, and I definitely am. Now, in terms of the Sharks, they have a favorable matchup Saturday-Sunday, and I'd likely target whoever's playing Saturday against the Devils, as they have struggled right out of the gates, while Philly has surprisingly jumped out to a 2-0 start. So if you need that goalie start Sunday and you don't like any of the guys I just mentioned, one of these guys will be available playing against the Flyers, so that's something to keep in mind as well. But the Flyers are playing much better defensively than the Devils right now, so the opportunity for a win might be there against the Devils as opposed to the Flyers. I would probably say the Devils have the better offense, so it's really kind of a toss-up to see if you want one of these guys for one of these games, but they do play back-to-back, and they will start each goaltender once, more than likely. In terms of another back-to-back, Brian Elliott on Tampa, Friday versus Florida, Saturday versus the Islanders. And that's maybe a beneficial matchup for Elliott. He just got lit up for 5 goals against Pittsburgh. They lost 6-2 in that one. And the Islanders also went off last night, but I don't see another 2-goal performance from Scott Mayfield in their future. And their anemic offense is just what Elliott needs to get back on track. So maybe that's what can get him going again this season. And last, but maybe most importantly, is Spencer Martin. So he's only 2% owned. He will likely see Columbus on Tuesday night. So if you look at his stats from last year, 6 games, 3-0-3 record, 950 save percentage, 174 goals against, and he also played really well in Abbotsford, 19-4-2, 914 save percentage, 243 goals against. So now he's earned that backup role, and they shipped out Jarro Halak to New York, or that's where he signed in the offseason. So now Spencer Knight is the backup, and let's see what he does against the Blue Jackets without Patrick Laine. That could be a really favorable matchup for a young up-and-coming goalie, and you could potentially grab him off the wire. He's at 2% ownership, so he is available as well. And then, one other thing I wanted to mention, Jack Campbell gave up 3 goals in the first period, maybe first period and a half on opening night against Vancouver. Luckily, they have McDavid and Draisaitl, so they did come back and win that game. But then again, in Game 2, 4 goals on 11 shots. He gets yanked after 10 minutes. If these struggles continue, they may start to give Stuart Skinner a few more starts. So that's something to keep an eye on, especially if you're a Campbell owner and you want that exposure to the Edmonton win potential. Stuart Skinner might have to come in and settle things down while Campbell finds a little bit of comfort and familiarity with that defense. Speaking of goaltending struggles, let's look at my team and how I fared in Week 1 against the Toe Dragons. Now, I mentioned last week that Toe Dragons doesn't even have the best toe drag in our fantasy league. That would go to Lake Mohawk Moose, in my opinion. But I quickly wanted to put this up for a vote. So who do you think has the best toe drag in the league? Let's go to the videotape. So first off, this is Lake Mohawk Moose. Look at that toe drag. Can we just run that back real quick? I mean, the guy just falls, and a beautiful backdoor pass. So that's Lake Mohawk. This is way more recent. This was last week or 2 weeks ago. That's Toe Dragons. That's a nice toe drag there. Gets around this guy. He's going all the way, and he's going to toe drag this guy too. Whoop! And then he scores. So that's 3 toe drags right there. That might be nicer. Let's run that one back really quick. So he toe drags this guy. Then he comes back around, gets him again. right there. So I don't know. Maybe there's a challenge there. He's gotten a couple sick toe drags in there, and he did get the goal himself, doing everything by himself. So that was Toe Dragons. You be the judge in the comments section below. Let me know who's the better toe drag guy in my league. But as we get back to the fantasy issues at hand, he just could not match my offense. So as I mentioned, offense wins championships. I beat him. He had pretty close on assists and power play points. It did come down to McDavid on the final night. I whooped him in goals, beat him in shots. We were close on hits and blocks. We have two different strategies. So he was going with a lot of different guys with some hits coverage. I was going with like two guys with hits coverage. Jeannot got me 16 hits. He got 15 from Ovechkin. So he did pick up Brandon Tanev, who got him 9 hits. That likely got him that win for that category. But this entire week came down to goaltending. And this was a horrible, horrible week for both of us. I found myself in the exact same position as last year with a much more potent offense, but I have that elite G1 in Tristan Jarry. He played great this week. That's the only reason I had any success. But then Mackenzie Blackwood looked terrible. Matt Murray looked terrible, and now he's on long-term IR for out for 4 weeks, likely a pulled groin or something like that. But I do have a little bit of peace of mind because Toe Dragons took Vanacek not relatively early, but he took him in the draft. He could have probably picked him up off the waiver wire. He stepped up and grabbed Grubauer in the 10th round, and he had a terrible week. So even his best guy, Jeremy Swayman, only 1 game this week, .875 save percentage. So I luckily edged him out in goaltending. That is going to be my biggest weakness this season, and that's something that I'm going to have to address. But yeah, this was, as you can see here, this was a little rare. I not only beat Toe Dragons in this league, but I went 4 for 4 in all of my leagues. So all of these leagues have different formats. This is all different point weighting leagues for these 3. This is our data draft league. This is the THHL that I've been featuring here. And then this is the Rangers league that I talked about in the draft video. This is the other league. Somehow went 4 for 4. I don't expect this. I'm just, I'm assuming that this is going to be the only time this year that this happens. So I wanted to feature it just to kind of give myself a pat on the back. But yeah, kind of crazy that happened this week. Now, my week 2 matchup is Lake Mohawk Moose. So if he is the better toe dragger, we'll have to figure that out in the comments section. But I am definitely in for a goaltending bloodbath. So he has Shesterkin. He didn't listen to me. He saw the video, probably. He found my channel 3 days before the draft. He likely saw the video that I said, don't draft a goalie in the first round. And instead, he drafted Shesterkin 7th overall. So I have almost no chance this week for goaltending. He also has Spencer Knight, and he picked up Jake Allen for a couple of nice starts this week as well. So that means I have to focus on offense, and that means finding a replacement for Laine, and then hopefully finding a replacement for Matt Murray as well. If you look at the hits category, I should be able to out-hit him. He doesn't really pay too much attention to hits. He might this week, now that I'm calling him out on YouTube. But I should be able to take that category and at least 4 or 5 of the other offensive categories if McDavid plays well, which I hope he does. But yeah, I quickly have a favor to ask of you, the data draft audience, and bear with me for a second because there's a very good reason that I need your help. You've heard me talk about AC Delaware River before. He's won the league 2 of the last 3 years and all that garbage. So what I'm about to show you is another case study in why I really badly need to beat him this year. So this is something he made. These are all his championships that he's won. He put up banners in his house, and he's raising the championship banner. And it's just, yeah, she's cute. She has a nice daughter. That's awesome. But this is just, yeah, cute dog too. But come on now. This is ridiculous. This is exactly why I need your help, because this guy cannot win the league again. This is insufferable, and it has to stop. So we're going to need to put an end to this, and that's where I need your help. So I humbly ask for your advice collectively, with Mackenzie Blackwood sucking in game 1 and then Matt Murray sucking in game 1 and then ending up on the IR for 4 weeks, which should have been obvious to me. I now admit that I was wrong prioritizing Murray over Samsonov. I get it. I made the mistake. But who do you think I should grab off the waiver wire? Leave your best suggestions in the comments section below. But that's going to do it for this video. If you made it to the end, thanks for putting up with my nonsense. I appreciate it. Thank you for your support. Thank you for watching all the way through to the end. This week I'll be doing some live stream Q&A, so stay tuned for that, and I will see you in the next one.